Meanwhile, we took a short break to assess, analyze what we'll be giving you so as to re-strategize and make more impact. I want to thank those of you that have been sending us inquiries and questions, and we appreciate your feedback. We are back. And the first thing we want to talk about is self-righteousness as mockers. This is mockers in the temple. You're welcome to Japheth. Self-righteousness, also called sanctimony, sententiousness, and holier than thou attitude, is an attitude of belief of moral superiority derived from a person deeming their own beliefs, actions, or affiliations to be of greater virtue than those of the average person. I want to say that again. It's not that their own beliefs or affiliations are greater, but they deem it to, and they act it out. The Bible describes the self-righteous as a specific form of mocker or scoffer. The Hebrew word lesson, often characterized by an arrogant, proud, and defiant attitude towards God's wisdom. This behavior frequently highlighted in the wisdom literature like the books of Proverbs and the New Testament, noting that such individuals feel superior to others, resist correction. I want you to take note of that. They do not only feel superior to others, they resist correction and ultimately will face divine judgment. Now, the biblical characteristics of mockers are as follows. The book of Proverbs chapter 21 verse 24 describes them as proud and haughty. Describe the proud and haughty man as a scoffer or mocker, whose pride shows itself in wrathful expression and actions. They angrily and they always violently express themselves, whether physically or with words. And they resist correction. A defining trait is an inability to accept rebuke. Proverbs chapter 9 verse 7 to 8 warns that correcting a mocker leads to be hated by them, whereas a wise person loves correction. Now, these people never accept that they are wrong. They will always find fault with what you are saying, with your positions, with your suggestions. They will never accept that they are wrong. They will always have an excuse for what they are doing, even when it is wrong. They are mockers. They are scoffers. Now, mockers, they are characterized as source of conflict. Mockers are seen as catalysts for strife, for quarrels, and abuse, as they often ridicule or despise others to elevate themselves. That is the thing. The mocker never feel comfortable until they are putting somebody down. In other words, I will put it this way: mockers are insecure people who feel the shame in quote and the ridicule in quote of others, or the weakness in quote of others. They are addicted to self-righteousness. Self-righteous mockers often behave with an outward show of spirituality without an inward change of heart, creating a dangerous, subtle form of mockery. 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 5, Gospel says, put it this way, said, they have a form of godliness but deny his power. They pretend to be righteous. Let me put it this way. They go to church. They listen to the scriptures, but the scriptures never make impact on them. Their behavior never change. They are resistant to change and they are fixed in their own ways. Now, I quickly want to say nobody is really perfect. And so we are all prone to weaknesses, periodically mistakes here and there. But the mocker is fixed. The mocker never changes. And the mocker never feels any ounce of guilt. The mocker has no conscience. They have disdain for wisdom. Proverbs chapter 4 verse 6 knows that a mocker seeks wisdom but finds none, as their heart is too close to receive it. Now, wisdom comes through desire. Wisdom comes through seeking. James chapter 1 verse 5, if any man lack wisdom, let him ask. Let him seek it from God, who giveth to all men liberally without reproach, without denial, without discrimination. But the mocker is not open to it. The mocker does not see the need for it. So what you do not see the need for, you cannot receive. Their heart is locked up. Their mind is locked up, is fixed in their ways. Now, there is a very powerful example. In the book of Luke chapter 18 from verse 9 to 14 specifically, Jesus tells of a parable of a man who trusts in his own righteousness and looks down on others, which is the epitome of the self-righteous mocker. And this is the story of the Pharisee and the publican, the sinner, who comes to the temple. The Pharisee comes to the temple and begins to act out. Lord, you know I'm a good man. You know I give charity. You know I'm kind. You know I'm humble. You know who I am. You know I'm a tither. You know I support my pastor. You know I help children, and so on and so forth. Ephesians chapter 2 says, verse 8 says, by grace you are saved, not of works, lest any man should boast. Salvation is a gift, no man merits it. Of course, when you are saved, it results in good works. But your good works does not in any way indicate you are saved. But the mocker, then he said to his, he was praised, but I'm not like this mocker. Mockers are full of comparison. But life is not about comparison. Life is about being the best you can be, because everyone has his own lane. Everyone has his own race. Everyone has his purpose. Everyone has his own goal. Each one will be measured according to how effective they were in the pursuit of their goal or their purpose. But the publican, the sinner, the Bible says, according to that parable, couldn't even look up. He said, Lord, I'm not good enough. I'm not qualified enough to be here. But I have come anyway, because I know you are a good God. And Jesus asked, who do you think was more acceptable to God? He answered it himself. Because as James chapter 4 will say, God resists the proud, He gives grace to the humble. Now, mockers, these self-righteous people, they are end-time scoffers. I want us to read the passage in 2 Peter. 2 Peter chapter 3. Just come with me. Because it's very instructive that you begin to understand this thing, because there are mockers even among ministers. Okay? And that is why you need to know the truth for yourself. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 3 to 4. He said, knowing this first, that scoffers will come in the last days, walking according to their own lust. The word lust here means according to their own desire, according to their own perceptions, according to their own ways. And saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the Father fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. Now, this passage warns that in the last days, scoffers will come with mockery, following their own evil desire and doubting the promises of God. Now, verse 9 responds to this mockery. In 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 9, he said, the Lord is not slack concerning his promise. In other words, Jesus is coming back again, as some count slackness, but is long suffering towards us, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. Because 1,000 years is like a day in the eyes of God. So God does not work in our chrono. God works in times and seasons. Now, here is what I want to say. Divine judgment will come upon the mocker. Even right now, while they mock others, God opposes the proud. He mocks proud mockers but shows favor to the humble and oppressed. If you are on the receiving end of a mocker, here is my comfort to you. God is watching you. You know, there's this song that says, from a distance, you ever heard that music? God is watching us. God is watching us. God is watching us. God is watching. There's a record of everything. Now, the seat of this corner, you know, we took our initial lead from Psalm 1. Pronounces a blessing on those who do not sit in the seat of mockers, indicating that some companies to be avoided. If you have a mocker in your social cycle, in your family cycle, in your workplace, and so on and so forth, create a healthy space so as to avoid constant arguments, quarreling, so as to avoid people bringing you into a situation of discomfort and unhappiness. Listen, the life that we live is difficult enough. We need cheerful people around us. We need people that will make us laugh. We need people that will encourage us. We need people that will motivate us. Not those that will deflate us like a tire. Alright? Do not rebuke the mocker because they respond with hatred. And the Bible advises us not to waste time trying to correct a hardened mocker. You can get that in Proverbs chapter 9, verse 8. Don't waste your time on them. Their ways said, they are casted on a stone. Okay? They are not ready to change. And if possible, remove them from your environment if need be. Driving out a mocker reduces conflict and strife. As much as possible, avoid them. If you can no longer avoid them, if you have the power, remove them. You know you can mentally remove somebody. Alright, it may not be physical. Just ignore them. Then, finally, we want to say this to you. Guide your heart. The goal is to avoid adopting their arrogant attitude and to focus on humility, recognizing that self-righteousness is a form of spiritual blindness. And here is the goal. In our attempt to respond to them, we may have to go down into the gutter with them. Don't do that. Don't be like them. That is why the Bible says, don't seek our revenge. Vengeance is of the Lord. As much as you can, if you cannot avoid them, if you can no longer tolerate them, then distance yourself from them. If you have to change location, if possible, do. Because you, my friend, deserve your peace of mind. Until the next time I see you, my name remains Osaro Anthony. This is Japheth. Thank you for tuning in.